عليما إنك على كل شيء قدير ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we've come to the 5th hadith now in the first chapter of intention. Interestingly, the previous hadith we've noted about hijrah, about emigration being the first hadith, and then the Prophet ﷺ clarifying that after the Fath of Mecca there is no hijrah except now jihad. And then the Prophet ﷺ in the last 2 hadith spoke about jihad and the intention behind that. Now in the next 2 hadith they're specifically about wealth. So before he was addressing physical acts and the intention behind them, now he's going to talk about wealth and giving out and what's your intention behind there. So you can see now a coherent order actually following throughout this chapter. And this hadith has not just been placed randomly, rather there's a purpose behind the order that Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah has given this hadith. And so this hadith is وعن أبي يزيد معني بن يزيد بن الأخنس رضي الله عنهم وهو أبوه وجده صحابيون. And so this hadith is narrated from Abu Yazid, whose name was Ma'an, whose father was Yazid, whose father was Akhnas. And he says, radiyallahu anhum, may Allah be pleased with them all. Why? Because all 3 were Sahaba. His grandfather was a Sahabi, his father was a Sahabi, and himself was a Sahabi, which is very rare. It's that they have the whole family basically being companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 3 generations in 1 generation, which is quite unique. He says, قال كان أبي يزيد أخرج دنانير يتصدق بها. That my father Yazid, so Ma'an speaking here, Ma'an says my father, he went out, he took some gold coins in order to give them in charity. فوضعها عند رجل في المسجد. So he goes out, his father, he takes these gold coins and he gives them to a man in the mosque. So he's giving out charity to the person. Interesting, the scholars talk about this. Is it permissible to give people charity in the mosque? Because this is less relevant, obviously, here in England. But in Jamaica, in Morocco, sometimes you get people stand up straight after the prayers and they announce, this has happened to me, and this and this and this. Should you give that person money? Because you can see the problem. If everyone does this, it's chaos. The whole mosque turns into a place of just people begging. And so they say it's actually permissible to give someone money in the mosque. It's not possible. It's not impermissible, but not if the person's asking for it, going around. You discourage that so that obviously the mosque doesn't become a place that's primarily for beggars rather than worship. It says فَوَضَهَا عِنْدَ رَجُلٍ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. So he wanted to give some charity. He goes and gives it out. The scholars mention here is that the permissibility of giving charity in public. Obviously he's going out to the masjid, he's giving it to the man directly. Other people will see that. There's nothing blameworthy in doing that whatsoever, as long as obviously it's not done out of boastfulness. Here I am, everyone see me, obviously. فَجِئْتُ فَأَخَذْتُهَا فَأَتَيْتُهُ بِهَا. Then, and this is the interesting point about the hadith I find the most interesting, is that Ma'an then Ma'an, he goes, who's the son of Yazid. Yazid gives out the money, and then Ma'an, he gives the charity. Ma'an, I've lost my train of thought. Ma'an goes and takes the money off the guy, and Ma'an's the son of Yazid. So you're following? Yazid goes out, gives charity. His own son comes, grabs the money off the guy, and comes back to his father with it. Now, it seems like from the context of the hadith, what I read in the commentaries, is that he didn't just grab it off the man. He actually said to him, look, I'm in need, and he explained the situation. So, Allahu A'lam, what I understand from this context is that basically his Yazid, and he's got his own family members are in need, and he prioritises someone who's not family. So what we take from this is that who has priority over any charity? It is, and we know that this is donation. It's not zakat, because it's not permissible. This is a common question, isn't it? Can I give zakat to my family? No, because you're supposed to be providing for in the first place. Why would you give them zakat? You're supposed to be spending on them for your main wealth. And so here we know that it's just a donation, and that obviously you should be concerned about your family first, and that's why, and it's concerned about your community. This is a huge issue for us with zakat and stuff. We always have this concept that people aren't needy in our community, but our community have priority over people who live afar, except if they're family members, of course. If they're family members, they're priority, or that those people are incredibly in need. Obviously there's Syria, and someone's here is needy, but not he's not really in major need. You can give some of that wealth there, but you should always give some wealth to your locality so that the community is supporting one another. That's very, very important, especially with new Muslims or Muslims that are, they're not originally from this area and they need that support. It's important that the community, they see that they have that support. And he says, so فَجِئْتُ فَأَخَذْتُهَا فَأَتَيْتُ بِهَا. So I went to eat my dad basically with the money. He says, one narration says that he didn't know it was his father that gave the money. He just went up to this poor guy and says, look, I'm really in need. He went up to this guy who was given the charity. He says, I'm really in need, may I have that? Then his dad says, hang on a minute, that's the money I gave just a minute ago. And so they have a bit of a squabble over this. So Ma'an, the son, he says, فَقَالَ وَاللَّهِ مَا إِيَّاكَ أَرَدْ. His father says, I didn't want to give that to you. You weren't the one I wanted to give it to. I wanted to give it to that man. He says, I'm more فَخَاصَمْتُهُ إِلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم. So I, how are you trying to say this? Because I not argued, but I what's the word in English? Petition? Yeah, maybe petitioned. Huh? Blame. That's it. So basically, I took him to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to arbitrate between this quarrel that I had with my father. It's really interesting here. I find this is the most interesting point of this hadith is it's not blameworthy where your rights have been taken away by your own family members for you to take them to court. Now, if you do that in the Asian community, if you take your own family to court because they've wronged you, what's the community going to say? Astaghfirullah. It's like he's taking his own family to court. What? Haram. No, it's not haram. If you your family's done clear wrong, and you can't, obviously you don't take them to court straight away. You don't phone the cops as soon as you on your own family. That's like the children today, isn't it? You judge me, I'm gonna get it. But obviously he tried to solve it amicably, but they couldn't. He said no, I wanted to give it to that person. He says no, I have more right to it. So he takes him to the Prophet ﷺ. So it's perfectly permissible, if there's a right, you can't solve the issue between yourselves, to take it to court. There's nothing, it is personal, but it's not that you actually disobeying, because people will see that as disobedience to your parents. And this is a major issue here, that, in our religion, are we required to always obey our parents? It doesn't make sense. How can you always obey your parents? What, are you telling me that if you're walking out the door to work one morning, your mum says, son, I need you to do shopping for me. I can't, Mum, I'm going to work. Oh, you disobeyed them. You couldn't run your life. If you had to obey your parents with their every whim and fancy, you wouldn't be able to run your life. You have to respect your family members. And sometimes you can obey your parents, but be disrespectful. And sometimes you can disobey your parents and be respectful. How? For example, say you come home and your mum says, I need you to help me with this, but you've got something that's really, you've got to get sorted. You say, Mum, that I will help you, I'll deal with it later, I've just got to sort this out. So you be respectful. Or you can come home and your mum says, do this for me, and you go, okay, I'll do it. Okay. Well, you've obeyed her, but you've been disrespectful. Now, what's better? Is it better to disobey them with respect than to obey them with disrespect? And often, more than not, it's better to disobey them with respect. Because you say, look, I've got to do this, I've got to sort this matter out, and then you won't have a grudge against your family. Because a lot of the time, you've got to get things sorted out, and your family members, and this is very common in the Asian community, your life is basically revolves around all the whims of your family members, especially extended, and your family say, no, you've got to, he's your cousin, or is he this, and you just have resentment towards your whole family, even though outwardly you're doing everything for them. Now, is that a good state to be in? So we live in very challenging circumstances now in this day and age where it's overwhelming with all the responsibilities in life. There's got to be a point where you stop And you say, look, I've got to prioritise my own immediate family and my own needs as well. And so this issue about obedience to family is something that's highly misunderstood. You have to respect, yeah, but it doesn't mean you have to obey. It's not common sense. Here, your family members, your father says, I don't want you to do this job, you've got to do this job. But if your son, the father's got not any common sense, do you have to obey him? That's ridiculous. No one would do that in their lives. And so respect, but not having to obey them. فقال والله ما إياك أردت فخصمته إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال لك ما نويت يا يزيد ولك ما أخذت يا معن. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, he says, oh Yazid, you gave that wealth out to that person, you have whatever you intended. This is a huge lesson here. Even though obviously it ended up in the hands of another, you get the reward. Now this is a big issue. When people come up to us and you give charity and you find out later that person is not even needy of it, okay, it doesn't matter, you got reward for that. So there's a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim where a man went out in the night and gave sadaqah, and in the morning he found out that person was a thief, and he said alhamdulillah, lakal hamd. Why is he saying praise be to Allah that he gave wealth to someone that robbed people? Next night he gives out some more charity. Found it in the morning, the guy's an adulterer, and he says alhamdulillah lakal hamd. What on earth? The people are thinking, what's this guy on? Next day he gives out some charity. Finds out he went to a rich man. The man didn't even need it in the first place. And so he says lakal hamd. So someone asked him, says, why is it you praise Allah? He says, maybe when I gave that wealth to the thief, it might stop him from robbing. No one knows. Okay. Maybe when I gave that wealth to the person that's a fornicator, adulterer, it might end up him repenting to Allah or through that. And the rich person, maybe he might give that on to someone who benefits, or I benefit as well. It doesn't mean that you're a sucker. You go out and you just get. But generally my principle is, if someone comes up to me and I'm thinking, this person, I'm not sure he's legit. Once I had this Saudi, he was in Trafford Centre, and he says, I'm supposed to be going back to my country, Saudi, and I've got my passport, I've got it taken away from me. I was like, this sounds a bit fishy, this story. So I gave him £1. Yeah. You give him something that you're not going to be bothered about if you find out he's a crook or not. But you've given, because in the end, why are we giving? We're giving for ourselves. And so Imam Shafi'i says that he used to give the money like this. He wouldn't give it's been narrated that he would, when he gave money, he would give it to the beggar like that, not like this. He didn't want his hand to be above the person, to remind himself that he's the one actually gaining a favour from this, not the other person. And so that's the essence of the charity. So he says, لَكَ مَا نَوَيْتُ يَا يَزِيدُ وَلَكَ مَا أَخَذْتَ يَا مَعْنِ. He says, you have what you intended, Yazid, when you gave to that person, but you have the right, ma'an, to take what you. And so family have priority. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك عملنا سوء وظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله.